Hey, Diana, did you know that the obstacle is the way?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I'm your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my co-host, Diana Berry, my right hand, my number one. This is your new name, by the way.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Why I'm now? What are you going to give me?
Okay, so I've been staying up lately, watching reruns of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Oh, your favorite TV show.
Yes,
and
I know so much about it.
You literally are lying through your teeth right now.
Yep, I know nothing.
But Captain Picard had his first officer, William Riker, and he referred to him as number one.
Because he was the first.
He was the first officer. So your new nickname is number one.
Oh, well.
Even though technically you're number two,
yeah.
But, it's just assumed.
Okay.
So anyway, hey, number one, what's going on?
Oh, not much. I'm excited about Q3. We just finished our EOS quarter planning session a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
How do you think it went?
I think it went swimmingly. I've come up with 4 rocks, one of which is exceedingly large that we're going to have to figure out how to pare down, but we'll work on that. And then next week, we're going to AAJ in San Francisco.
We are. That is already next week. I need to get ready for that.
Yeah, so that's fun. I'm going to have fun out there, taking pretty much everybody with us, most people with us. Going to have fun with that. Oh, and I wanted to make an announcement. So I had teased this earlier in an earlier podcast, and now we have more details. On October the 3rd here in Houston, Texas, I will be putting on a program along with my co-host Denise Cullen from Atticus. We're going to be putting on an Atticus program called A Roadmap for Law Firm and Personal Success.
Very cool.
So it's going to be right here in Houston, Texas, October the 3rd. Limited seating available, so you need to sign up early.
How do they sign up?
You go to atticusadvantage.com/workshops. So they have multiple workshops with multiple locations and multiple venues. Of course, I'm pimping out the one here in Houston, Texas on October 3rd.
Okay. Very exciting.
So we are going to go over the roadmap for law firm and personal success, which is a relatively new program for Atticus. It is a revised, sort of expanded version, I think, of the old program, which was called Double Your Revenue.
So it's still kind of like a primer.
It's a primer. It's a day-long workshop. So now, understand. And here's the distinction. And, you can go to a lot of CLE events, and you're just sitting there, and there's speakers talking, and there's no interaction. And, of course, nobody's paying attention, and everybody's on their phone, reading their email and whatever. This is a workshop. So no phones, no computers, day long, highly interactive. You have worksheets available. They take frequent breaks where you break into small groups and discuss ideas, and you workshop and you wordsmith ideas all day long. And at the end of the day, you come out with a master plan. So I think much more valuable, much more interactive, much more result-oriented than your typical just go into some day-long CLE program. This is not that.
So I think that the bad part of Atticus is that it stops and makes you think.
Yes.
That's the great part.
It makes you uncomfortable from time to time.
Exactly. And so it's for lawyers and especially business owners, they don't ever carve out a full day to just stop and think. And so when you're paying for something like this, you obviously are going to maximize that value by stopping and thinking. But because you don't do it very much, it's obvious. It's also very hard to do that. So,
and you also get to collaborate with other like-minded people that you normally are not talking with. So typically in these groups, we will do periodic, like every hour, we'll do like a 10 or 15 minute breakout where we break you out into 2, 3, or 4 person groups, and we have you, change it up. Don't, you're not sitting talking with people you typically already know. These are people that you probably just met for the first time this day, but they're, like-minded entrepreneurial attorneys, and you learn from each other, and you bounce ideas off of each other.
Like-minded, similarly situated.
Yes.
And, I think that's a perfect segue, Mark, into our topic for today.
Yeah. What the hell are we talking about today?
I don't know, because it's not marketing, or I'm sure you're going to somehow get it into marketing.
Of course it is. It's all about marketing.
Confused. This is actually your choice to talk about this, and it's definitely a soft skill. I'm confused.
Definitely soft skill. So we are going to talk in generality. We're going to base our conversation today off of some Stoic philosophy. So I, along with Anthony Vessel, one of my attorneys in the office, we have really gotten into some Stoicism lately. So Stoic philosophy sort of originated with Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor back probably about 100 years after the birth of Christ, I think, if I'm getting the timeline correct. Ruled as this emperor, Caesar, of one of the Caesars of Rome, Roman Empire. Interesting, I looked him up today. He died of the plague.
Oh.
So many Roman emperors were killed by their own Praetorian Guard. If you ever get into Roman history, it was almost an automatic that eventually you would get assassinated if you were a Caesar. He was one of the few that died of a natural cause, although it was the plague, which kind of sucks. I don't think that was...
Is that better or worse?
I'm not sure. It might be better just to get stabbed and get it over with quickly.
Yeah. I think it's a testament to who he was as a leader, probably, that he didn't get assassinated.
Yes, probably so. So, wow, we get off on tangents, but hey. So Marcus Aurelius was sort of one of the originators of Stoicism. And then, of course, what got me into it was reading Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, which is sort of a very nice encapsulation of what Stoicism is all about. Control your controllables and don't worry about things you can't control.
You make it sound so easy.
It is. Oh, it's so easy in principle. In reality, it's awful.
He's also got a podcast. Do you listen to the podcast?
I occasionally listen to his podcast, and he writes a daily Stoic, which is I think you
Newsletter?
Get it, kind of a daily thought. I think you can get it a lot of ways. You can either get it on social media, or you can get an email list or something like that. But he kind of gives you this daily Stoic thought. He's written lots of books. I think The Obstacle is the Way is the best one. He's written Ego is the Enemy, Stillness is the Key, Discipline is Destiny. You can see the pattern here in the books. But Stoicism is really a philosophy from ancient Greece and Rome focused on how to live a virtuous and resilient life. I try to translate that in how to build a resilient law firm, a practice. I think there's lots of lessons here that you can bring into the practice of law. I mean, one of my favorite quotes was, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This is Marcus Aurelius. "So realize this and you will find strength." In other words, as I say repeatedly, I tell my kids this all the time, control what you can control and don't worry about what you can't control. Okay? Which is sort of the essence of Stoic philosophy. But as I've gotten into this, I have found so many business applications where this works for us. For example, we work in a heavily regulated industry. Since we make disability claims with the government, everything we do is regulated by the government. There's just certain things that we can't control. We're fee capped, for one. We accept it. We don't argue with it. We understand it. We understand it's a limitation within our practice. We just learn to deal with it. Okay? So we can't control the fee cap. What can we control? Well, we can control our costs. We can control our time on desk. We can control the cases that we select. We can control, the technology that we use to make ourselves more efficient so we can work within this fee-capped structure. That's just one tiny little example of kind of stoicism in the business world. What can you control?
Yep, and I mean, relating it to our PI friends, I was just listening to another podcast, the Atticus podcast, and so driverless cars obviously going to impact the PI or the car wreck.
Yes, most car wreck practice, most PI practices, rely heavily on car wrecks, which are going to go away, by the way.
Because driverless cars, but nothing you can do about that. They're coming. And so, I guess we're going to talk today about how Stoicism would approach that, that problem. I wouldn't even think they would call it a problem, the challenge.
The challenge.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key things about Stoicism is, and the title of Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. So in other words, as opposed to running away from the roadblocks, the obstacles, the roadblock is the way. Challenge the roadblock. How can you work through the roadblock? How can you work around the roadblock? That if, you face daily challenges, face them head on instead of avoiding them, I think is sort of the concept here, the Stoic concept that Ryan Holiday is trying to preach. And you can use this in a lot of contexts. Staff turnover, okay? It's an obstacle for us, but we have to meet it head on. Sometimes staff turnover, that is the way. We can improve the quality of our staff when we have, planned turnover or good, what I would call good turnover. You've talked about this in the past. Sometimes
we're always sad to lose a team member.
We're always sad, but there's always the opportunity to replace them with somebody maybe of higher quality.
Well, and just to refresh the team, and I think that's very stoic of you, Mark, to think about it that way. So today we're going to talk about some of the three ways that you've applied Stoicism to running your law firm.
That's the plan. And I might come up with a fourth or fifth or sixth way, or I might just totally go off the reservation here. We never know when we get into these things.
I only have 3 on my outline.
It drives Diana crazy when I jump the shark and get off the outline.
So we'll talk about 3 today, guys.
Okay. We'll see how well Diana can rein me in.
This podcast is sponsored by Mark Whitehead and Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Mark Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Mark represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Mark Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Mark has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Mark Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, so we're here, Diana, today to talk about Stoicism and Stoic principles in daily life, and particularly in the daily life of a law firm leader, law firm owner. I'm going to start with one of my favorite Stoic quotes from the great Stoic wisdom. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yep.
We all know Captain Jack from Pirates of the Caribbean movie. So that's, and one of the great quotes from the movie was, "The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem." I love that quote. Now Seneca could have said that, but no, it was Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean. But it's a great quote. I think I'm going to put it up on my wall.
Well, it makes sense. Your mindset. I mean, really, that's what we're talking about today, is changing your mindset. And for so many, I think, attorneys, law firm owners who thought they were going to law school to become a lawyer, and then they ended up accidental business owners, or now just kind of want to figure out how to manage where they're at. It's a mindset.
Right. So the first of the 3 points that Diana hopes I stick with before I go off the reservation is perception. In other words, seeing obstacles differently. as Captain Jack said, the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. I talked about it in the first section. There are occasions where we lose staff, that staff leave us for whatever reason. And we could sit and cry about that. But it is an opportunity to restructure the organization, to maybe upgrade personnel, maybe to, rewrite the job description to make it, update there's lots of opportunities when something bad happens. There's the old saying, where there's chaos, there's opportunity. So anytime something weird happens, I always say, look for the opportunity behind it. Even so, for example, we get negative reviews from time to time, or we get client complaints from time to time. Should you cry over that? No. You should go thank that person for giving you that feedback, and I wish I did a better job of this, but you get a client that's upset about something. The first thing you should do is call that client and say, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for letting me know that there's a problem within my organization. Please help me understand so maybe we can fix the problem. Maybe it's a personnel issue, maybe it's a training issue, maybe it's a problem with our process and procedure, our communications. But anytime you have a client that complains, that's an opportunity for you. You should thank that client, and you should thoroughly interview that client. And I guarantee you, by the time you're done with that, you're probably going to make that client, a raving fan, because somebody actually paid attention to his complaint.
It was actually in preparing for this podcast, I was reflecting on why this particular lesson of seeing obstacles differently actually resonated so well with me. And I don't know if it's my low I or my high S. But I think that the low I in me does do very well when we get a quote unquote negative review, or when we do have employee turnover. I do think there's obviously always time for the postmortem of how could we have done better in managing a team member that left, or obviously client satisfaction. We need to figure out what went wrong. But I do very well in just managing that. And I don't know, and I'm not picking on the high I's. I get a lot of flack for that, for not only picking on the high I's because I'm such a low I, but also for being, for sometimes lacking compassion. When we do our quarterly reviews, you can tell me sometimes that I've been a little bit more dispassionate this quarter, because I do think that it's not necessarily... I was listening to I do listen to Holiday's podcast. They're so short. I like them. Most of the time they're about 10 minutes.
Yeah, unlike our hour-long drones.
Well, we've talked about Star Trek today. So I think that it's not about optimism or pessimism. It's just the way you almost just look at the obstacle very matter-of-factly. And I don't know that high I's do that innately. And many trial attorneys, as we've discussed before, they have to process that emotion of losing the team member because they feel that very personally. The negative review comes very personally. And so there is that challenge of, if you are maybe a high I law firm owner, finding someone who's maybe a balance to you, and or recognizing...
Define high I for those people who don't
know. Sorry guys. Yeah, I am using some high I on the DISC test, which usually stands for influence. But if you're a high I on the DISC, DISC test, you tend to be more extroverted. Whereas,
the chatty Cathy. You're the chatty Cathy.
I would never say that, because
would.
You can. Your name's on the building. You would call me lacking compassion if I did that. But I tend to be low I, which can be very introverted, and I can state facts very matter-of-factly and be okay with it, and sometimes struggle with realizing the impact that might have on another person. And so if you don't have that high I, if you are a high I law firm owner, recognize that about yourself, and maybe compliment yourself with somebody else.
So I was just thinking, one of the best opportunities, if you have unwanted turnover, if you have an employee quit, the first thing I would suggest, and this is what we try to do, is try to do an exit interview with that employee that's leaving, because this is when they're going to be the most honest with you about what they really think, because they're leaving. They don't care anymore. They'll give you some honest feedback. And we try to do that when people leave us, is we try to do an exit interview. We try to get some honest feedback. you could take that to the next level, and you could do exit interviews with all of your clients once you finish representation with them. We don't necessarily do that because we have such a high volume practice. We've talked about ways of doing a client exit survey, which I think is a great idea that maybe we'll implement one day. But hey, how did we do? What did we do well? And more importantly, what did we not do well? How did we not meet your expectations? And if you can take the time, and not think of that as a bad thing or as a pain in the butt type of thing, but that is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to get better. I think that's a total mindset shift, a total perception shift. You don't want to run from negative information. You want to embrace negative information because that's the feedback that will really teach you something.
Absolutely.
So, some tactical applications that I kind of thought about. In flipping the perception of the whole thing. For example, when we have our weekly level 10s, we ask, how do rate yourself 1 to 10 personally, rate yourself 1 to 10 professionally. What I think we should add to that question is, what obstacles did you face last week and what did you do to overcome them? Or maybe you didn't overcome them. I think that would be a great question to ask at our level 10 meeting. Mm-hmm. So, because, when you get in a group situation like that and you can think about it, there's always going to be somebody that has a possible suggestion, a possible solution to the obstacle. If you would just ask people what they think, if you would bring it up in a more regular, systematized way.
Well, and I like the idea of waiting until maybe the next week when things aren't so fresh. You can't always, I think in the moment when you get bad news, whether it's an employee leaving or not, just but a negative review, you want to deal with it. It's 911. It's all hands on deck. You're trying to move from where you are now, which is the unknown, to some sort of new status quo. And so waiting a while can sometimes just take the edge off for everybody, take the emotion off for everybody.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is we're trying to be unemotional about this. And sometimes dealing with the crisis in the moment, the emotion gets the best of you. The other day, the UPS guy came to my door and demanded a $37 check to pay the Trump tariff on this item that I'd ordered from overseas. And I got pissed because he would only take a cashier's check. I'm like, I'm sitting in my front door. How am I going to get a cashier's check? I had an emotional moment. I know this shocks you, that I got pissed off at a UPS driver. But sometimes, now thinking about it in retrospect, I could have handled it.
Oh my gosh, Mark!
I know.
What did you? Let's not talk about that.
I'm just saying. Sometimes you need to count to 100 and breathe.
Absolutely. And I do think that Stoicism kind of gets this bad rap for being unemotional. I think I heard you say that earlier about being unemotional, and I don't know, that sounds so harsh, especially because you're trying to honor how else everybody else is processing what's happening. And I was listening to some of Holiday's stuff to get ready for this podcast. And one of the things that he mentioned that Seneca wrote in one of his letters was, that in his studies, he's become a better friend to himself. The quote was, "I've become a better friend to myself." And I think that that's more embodiment of Stoicism. It's not criticizing, how you acted in that moment. It's just, okay, we did it and we're going to do better. We got the negative review. We're gonna do better. It's not self-flagellation or especially not of your team member.
It's self-reflection.
Absolutely, in a very controlled way. So I really like the way that you said that, Stoicism in the law firm, seeing obstacles differently.
Yes.
That's the first step for sure, and the mindset shift.
All right, so what is our second step?
I actually, Mark, I think this is your let's talk about what you think the second step is.
I would say action. I'm always have a bias for action. I'm like, just do something. Even if it's wrong, let's just do something.
Which kills me.
I know. It's like ready, shoot, aim.
No, I'm like, but where?
I get it.
And how many? And with what? To which you never really have all the answers, but we eventually get there together. You're right.
You're right. So, first was a perception. changing your perception. Now it's about action, doing the work no matter what. I think the quote I wrote here is, just do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. This is another quote from Marcus Aurelius. For example, we can't control the court's backlog. I know lawyers run into this all the time. The courts are backlogged. We can't control that. But what can we control? We can improve how we work the case internally. We can control our internal workflow. So we know, control your controllables. Don't worry about the rest.
Control your customer service, making sure your client knows you're still working on the case, even though it's not going to go to trial anytime soon.
But I still think have a bias for action. Do something. Figure out what it is that you can move the ball forward, even if you can only move it a little bit. So, for example, we will file an appeal, or say we'll file an application with the Social Security Administration. They'll take 6, 8, even nowadays up to 10 months to do something, to actually act on our application.
10 and more.
It's insane how long it has gotten.
6 is no
Thank
longer
you,
a
Doge.
thing.
And then if they deny our case, we have 60 days to appeal it. But we don't need 60 days. Our internal deadline is 7 days. Let's appeal it within 7 days. So we can shorten the timeline by, 7 weeks? We can shorten the timeline by 7 weeks. Mm-hmm. Even though that may sound like not a lot in the grand scheme, since they're taking 7 months or longer, but that 7 weeks, that's still 7 weeks that we can shave off the timeline by taking action, by being aggressive, by being proactive in the way that we process our work here. So I used to be the world's worst about this. I will tell you, 30 years ago, I was deadline driven. I would only do things when the deadline came up. If I had 30 days to file something, I'm taking 30 days to do it. And as I got older, I realized, why? Mm-hmm. I'm just wasting time. I'm dragging out the process in the case. I'm lengthening the timeline between the start of a case and the finish of the case, and the client cares about the finish. They want their case resolved. So why should I be an impediment, even if it's just a little bit of time? Let's save time wherever we can. Let's move. Let's do something.
Under Stoic philosophy, controlling your controllables, that timeline is absolutely in your control.
Yes.
Right? And so shortening it makes absolute sense, because then it gives you something back. And I think there's something very human about needing to control things. I know I'm a control freak. Everybody knows that. But I think that's very human, even if you're not as type A as I am.
So this leads right into your processes. Okay, so one of the things that we can control is our systems, our procedures, and our processes. In other words, we can systematize how we do things. And anywhere in the process that we can work to shorten our workflow, that's where we are actually taking control. We are taking action to improve our processes. For example, 1 week to file an appeal, not 60 days. I don't know. I'm sure there's many other examples of how we do this within the firm. How we expedite our medical records compared to how we used to do it. Anything we can do to shave off a day here, a week here, a month here, we're trying to be proactive. We're taking action.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I was going over your outline, I thought about discipline. When you doing the work, no matter what, it's this day is not going to go the way that I had thought that it was going to go. And that is sometimes the hardest thing for people to understand and reflect. We've talked a lot about your time blocking, and how you had to explain and still explain to a lot of people that when you time block, the goal is not 100%. The goal is 80%. You're trying to make sure that you can still have some fluidity and some flexibility. And so, when things happen, like that's the negative review, or, judge decides to go on vacation and messes with your trial date, or whatever the things are that are completely out of your control, I think it takes discipline to just, reflect on that, not react to that, whatever happened, and then respond to it, and then get back to work. Yeah. And not letting the event derail you, derail your quarter goals, derail the whole week of your productivity.
So I call it grinding. and this is actually one of the characteristics that I like to hire for when I'm hiring people. I like grinders.
High S's.
High S's, people
Which
that are
is
steady,
An S
steady,
on the
that they
disc.
just keep going. You know, you knock them down, they just get up and they keep going. They're like the Energizer Bunny. You know, they just keep going. It's what I call a grinder.
So that's the high S, the steadiness on the disc test.
I think high S and high C's.
Yeah, well, I think the high C's can be a high C on its own, especially coupled with a high D. There's no flexibility. You have to teach flexibility to that disc profile. I incidentally am an off the charts. I think I'm naturally a higher S than I am a C, but my S and C are extremely high. And so again, if you're a growth oriented firm like we are, like Marc explicitly hired me with the whole idea that we're going to grow this firm. You want a high S for sure, because they do tend to just focus and like I've told Marc before, you know, being a high S means that when I come to you with a, hey, Marc, this is a 911, I think you do listen to me, because I'm not a, you know, Chicken Little with every little thing that's happening in the firm that's a setback or whatever the case may be. It's not the sky is falling situation.
So the whole grinder mentality leads to the third element that we're talking about here, which the third one is your will, your inner strength, and your endurance. This is, I think, what separates the successful from what we'll call the mediocre. Is successful people fail all the time, but they just keep going.
That is true.
They do not quit.
And it's not mediocrity.
I didn't want to use the word
Average.
Unsuccessful people.
Well, average. Just, you know, people can absolutely be successful in their own way. Just,
Yeah.
We're going to call them like the people that truly are, you know, the people that you look at that you may want
How about
to be
we'll just simplify. We'll say what separates the successful from the rest is your ability to grind, your ability to just keep on going, no matter how hard life knocks you down, however it kicks you in your teeth, whatever it is, whether it's a business failure, whether it's a personal setback, whether, you know, you have issues with your health that knock you down, you just keep grinding. And I think this is what really separates, you know, people out on we'll call it the success scale, is you just keep going. You get knocked down and you get up and you just keep going. You know, here's what I love. This is what I love about Stoicism, is because there's just a shit ton of quotes. So I'm going to be dropping quotes on you left and right.
Okay.
So Seneca said the only way to learn strong character is through obstacles and trials. In other words, you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. Okay. And this is what really defines successful people, is that they learn from their failures. Look at Steve Jobs. Look at all the, you know, he got fired from Apple. He got knocked down many times, and he just kept getting up and getting up and getting up, you know. And, you know, if he hadn't got struck down by illness, which ultimately got him, God knows where he would be right now. But, you know, and I can think of numerous examples of that, of people who they get knocked down and they just keep getting up and getting up. And they just keep going. And that's sort of that's the whole concept of the inner strength and endurance. You just keep grinding. Well, I love hiring grinders.
Yep. And I do think that, you know, we took that emotional intelligence test, but I do think that inner strength is something you can't get from, you know, probably external validation or from the team around you. And so there is something, you know, in that emotional intelligence test that I do recommend people take if you're just curious about where you get your desire to work, or where you get your influence from. And that inner strength, I think, is a sign of, maybe, I don't know if there is a link to emotional intelligence, but right. I do think that you can't get it from external things, because it's just things are going to happen.
So think about it. So running a law firm, you know, particularly any law firm on any side, it's a lonely business. You are kind of at the top, you know, and a lot of people don't understand the pressure that you're under. Even your spouse, I mean, I've had this, they don't understand the pressure that you're under. I mean, the fact that I have to make payroll for 75 people every 2 weeks, that's a lot of pressure, you know, and shit happens, you know, revenues drop, The government starts screwing things up with Doge and delaying your cash flow. The courts delay your cases, But what the Stoic philosophy would say that you're not failing at that moment. You're just training. You're just developing another muscle to deal with these types of things. And it's important because everybody's looking at you. Your staff's looking at you. Your lawyers are looking at you. Everybody's looking at you as the leader of the firm. How are you dealing with this? And if you openly start to lose your shit, they're going to lose their shit.
They are definitely looking to see how you're responding. So I think it can't be a reaction. It has to be a response. And I think something else that you said, I think have I told you this before? Lonely is the head that wears the crown. Mm-hmm. I've said that to you several times when I've told you, when you're like, just make the decision, Diane. I'm like, sorry, sir, this is one of yours. Mm-hmm. This is a time when you're going to have to make that decision, because it is very lonely up there. And I do think that is why some of these really good systems and coaching groups that we're a part of, whether that's EOS and how they mentioned the vision, or, how they emphasize the visionary integrator relationship, or Atticus, they encourage you to bring not only the law firm owner, but your team leader, and they have a whole separate, leadership track or, training track for team leaders. It's because it is so good to instill that inner strength, that endurance, but also that discipline through not just you as a law firm owner, but your team.
Yeah. So one of the things my little secret tricks is, everybody has to dump it sooner or later. They have to lose their shit. They have to, don't do it with your people, because then they start to lose confidence in you. So you need to have that sort of sounding board separate and apart from your firm. So that's one of the great things I have about all of my Atticus friends, is if stuff is going wrong and I'm just needing to vent, I'm just needing to panic in front of somebody, I need to lose my shit in front of somebody, I go to them, people outside of my firm. I'll call those guys up and I'll whatever I need to do. If I need to blow off some steam, if I need to vent, if I need to bitch, if I just need to express my innermost worries, I do it outside of the firm, because, again, I have to project the image within the firm of somebody that is firmly in control and firmly knows how to lead the firm, because that's my job.
Yeah, and it's ironic because I didn't know you were going to mention the October. I didn't know actually that you had confirmed a date there, and so with Atticus. But the Atticus, we talked a lot about Atticus, was my point there. But Atticus does the same thing and has support for its team, for its team lead. So today, I'm going to miss it unfortunately because we're going to do our same page meeting next. But they have a whole separate team leader Zoom where it's like no attorneys are allowed, no law firm owners are allowed. We don't record it so that we can have that community for ourselves. I'm in a ropes team with, just other COOs and team leaders for other law firms so that we can say, hey, you know what? You're not alone. And I think that's helpful because then you can understand what problems are unique, and very rarely are you ever by yourself because, as you said, it can be really lonely, even being the right hand.
So Holiday describes it as building your inner citadel.
I like citadel. That's a good word.
I know. What is a citadel? Like a fort? Mm-hmm. So like build your inner, and that's kind of like your inner board of directors, people, your sounding board, people that you can go talk to, whether it's a mentor. It's kind of the reason I like being a mentor, because I have other people that come to me and I'm the person that they blow off steam to, and I'm like, all right, that's good. Now let's calm down and let's think about a path forward. And I kind of enjoy that because it's kind of problem solving and I kind of get to do it on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it is I learn lessons for myself that I can use for myself. I actually truly believe one of the advantages of me coaching other lawyers, and I coach 5 lawyers right now, I think I learn just as much as they do from my coaching efforts. Every time I, spend an hour with one of my coaching clients, I walk out of there learning very valuable things that I did not know prior to that. So I'm almost getting as much as I'm giving. And I think that's one of the advantages of having sort of that mentor relationship, or developing that citadel or that board of directors, whomever, your sounding board, is that y'all can both, win from, it's a win-win. You both win from the situation.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, Mark, you and I both work out, and it's a lot like working out to me, like that resilience and building that inner citadel, if you will. But I think of it as resilience. You've called it endurance on this segment, but it is a muscle, and the more that you work out that muscle, the stronger you're going to become, right?
Okay, so when we come back for our last section, what are we going to talk about?
Hopefully not 3 more.
Not 3 more. So we're going to come back with our closing thoughts, and I think the theme for our closing segment is how to turn pain into purpose. Will be our closing theme. We'll be back. I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister podcast. We have a blast creating it, and I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. That's Mark spelled with a C. And join the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up. Turning pain into purpose.
Sounds awful, Mark.
I love that saying because I've always said that the biggest driver of this law firm is our purpose. And our purpose is simply to improve the lives of our disabled and injured clients. It's a beautiful, very simplistic purpose. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning. It's a very simple way to explain, at our staff meetings, this is what we do. This is our guiding compass is what did we do today to somehow improve the lives of our clients? So I like it. So the issue here is turning your pain into purpose. And so I always say, the obstacle is the way, by Ryan Holiday it's a playbook for how owners can operate their business. Cause your law firm is never going to be without problems. I mean, that kind of defines what we do. That's what we are. We are problem solvers. We sell solutions to our clients. So to think that we could skate by without having our own problems is kind of ridiculous. Of course, we're going to have problems in running our law firm. And what matters is not that you have problems. It matters is how you show up for that. What are you going to do to address those problems when they come? Are you going to let them defeat you, or are they going to be your guiding path on how to move forward? I think the concept is, instead of saying, why me, lamenting, oh, woe is me, how did this happen to me? What you want to turn that phrase into is, all right, what now? What do we do next?
Yeah, and I think that I'm surprised I'm the one saying this, Mark, but I wouldn't jump from, okay, I got a negative review. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Like, I think people need to process their emotions, and you need to give people a safe place to do so, but you can't just stay there and smother in the emotions, and you can't marinate in your emotions and in the reaction of the bad thing that happened. There is the need to at least acknowledge whatever emotional thing is happening to your team, right. But not allowing it to become the mantra, the story, the thing that you just live in is a great way to move to that next step.
The question is, what did we learn from it? Mm-hmm. Every time something goes wrong, you should immediately start thinking, what lesson did I learn? What can I improve because of this? How can we turn this negative into a positive?
Well, and I think that, we can't harp on it enough to talk about how, you need to focus on what's in your control, right? I think that that's where people can spin and really start to get, anxious. That's a very real thing for a lot of people, especially your attorneys. They probably didn't see that person leaving them. They have their whole docket that they're worried about, their stuff at home. And then now you're going to allow them to spin about what's happening, or this, either 5-star review negative review that they got, that now they're going to have to reprimand somebody, and it's just going to become this whole thing. And you're like, okay, let's come back center, and let's think about what's in our control. And I think Holiday said on one of his podcasts, that's where true freedom is being able to recognize and differentiate and then move forward with what's in your control and what's not.
Yeah. So one of the great quotes, the obstacle on the path actually becomes the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. That's one of Ryan Holiday's quotes.
I think that can be very hard. I mean, it sounds so easy when we read Holiday's quotes about, the obstacle is the way. And it sounds so very touchy-feely, especially, I think, in growth-oriented firms. I think that talking to our listeners and the people that really listen and resonate with this podcast are the people that are, underwater anyway. They did not think they were going to be business owners. But I think accepting the fact that you are now, and maybe that you are secondarily a trial attorney or an attorney, is maybe the first step in Stoicism.
So some of the challenges that Ryan Holiday came up with, he goes, pick one current challenge, and journal it. In other words, write it down. I think that's one of the key things, is sometimes getting thoughts out of your head and getting them onto paper. He calls it journaling. I would call it goal setting, but it's the same general concept. Get it out of your head and get it on a piece of paper. And then try to think, how could I turn this challenge into a strategic advantage?
Yeah, how is this a positive?
So first of all, if it's a challenge in your law firm, it's a challenge in your competitor's law firm as well. And if you can solve the problem before your competitor can solve that problem actually becomes a competitive advantage. It's a unique way of thinking about it.
Yep, chaos. Every other Social Security firm is dealing with the
We're
exact
all dealing
same
with
thing.
Doge.
Yep.
We're all dealing with the same issues.
And if we can figure out how to get ahead of it, like you said,
if I can solve the problem before my competition can solve the problem, then
we're ahead.
Survival of the fittest. That's what's going to happen. So you want to commit to reframing at least one problem this week and reframe it as an opportunity. So I like the word reframing. I use that word a lot with my kids. We need to reframe this problem. I think the last quote I'm going to give, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. A lot of times, again, it becomes back to our mindset. Our mind starts to run wild about how all the bad things that can happen because of this particular issue. And if we just reframe it, this is an opportunity. This is a way that we can make ourselves better. And it just becomes a total mindset shift. And I love it. I will honestly say I succeed at this about 50% of the time.
Okay.
So I recognize that I still lose my mind half the time on things. But I'm better than I used to be, and that's all you can ask for is let's just keep grinding, just some continual improvement. Don't lose your mind every time you have a problem. Think about where the opportunity could potentially lie and figure out how to take advantage of it.
See, when I start to read, it was so interesting. I would say that I do better at that than you, but that's why you hired me, I guess. I would say that I do very well at that, 90 to 95% of the time. The times that I lose my blank, it's because I'm burnt out or edging towards burnout, or I'm just completely unbalanced. And I would say 100% of the times that I've lost my blank at this firm, it's because of an imbalance.
I lived in a state of imbalance.
Yeah. No, piouses we do not, sir. I don't understand all of that. So I do think if you're not going to read The Obstacle is the Way, do listen to Holiday's podcast. It's a good one. Short one.
All right. With that, we are out of time. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So remember to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, tell your friends, spread the word. Let's get our listenership up. And be sure to visit us at successfulbarrister.com. And if anything stokes your interest, send me an email at mark@markwhitehead.com. Mark is spelled with a C, both sides of the at. And be sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead & Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.